Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hopefully this one does a little bit better. There's a bunch of noise in the background. I'm sorry guys, so if you guys are hearing something. I try to cut it down, but I'm in, but that's it. It's late at night back in the States. But I wanted to get to an early start. Back in 2012-ish, I think it was before 2012, but I don't remember the exact time frame because I don't remember the stuff like talking about. I ended up getting really ill. In fact, it was further back than that. But during the time that I was getting ill, I ended up in one of the hospitals in the States. While at that hospital, we were battered by a vicious tornado. I don't know the name of the tornado because, again, I don't remember that stuff, but it was bad enough where it knocked out power all throughout Richmond, so much so it looked like a war zone. My mom, as she's driving to the hospital, she's dodging like trees that are falling into the ground. Lights are off. Water, for the most part, is off. The water at the hospital was off. In the situation that I was in, I was getting sick at the stomach constantly, bringing up blood. And the only thing that the nurse could do was bring essentially tissues in a bucket because they didn't have water to even flush. Like, I'm trying to get across the level of devastation that was taking place. The things that we consider humanity, that we become accustomed to in humanity, electricity, lights, working water, all that stuff, gone in a blink of an eye. Maybe not a blink of an eye, maybe over the course of 8 brutal hours, in which case we were punched in the face by nature over and over and over again into the point of submission. Fortunately, we had good capitalists there. And those good capitalists looked at this and says, hey, you guys need water, so we're going to increase the price of water. We're going to increase the price of water for those people who don't have it. It was bad. As bad as that was, I got to be honest, I don't remember this level of intensity or this level of frequency with the standpoint of hurricanes. And this, by every measure of legitimate science, is driven by us. We're punching ourselves in the face over and over again. We're ending life on this planet. And we're doing it year by year by year. I like to use the colloquialism, there's an asteroid that's about to hit the planet. I talked to my mom yesterday. She's still in Virginia. We're still in Richmond, or they're still in Richmond. And they were at the grocery store trying to get the resources that they could because they know they were going to be in for it, and they weren't sure whether or not they were going to be able to come out in order to get that stuff during the course of the storm. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. And you can make an argument that says, no, it's not going to hit the planet. It is currently hitting the planet over and over and over again. But because it doesn't take the form of an asteroid, because it doesn't take the form of this thing that you can look up and say, holy shit, that's about to hit the planet. And the media doesn't necessarily, they can't put it in those terms. They can't put it in this just blunt force term of that thing is going to hit us, watch our television broadcasts. Even something like the destruction of the planet itself being boiled down to a capitalistic enterprise of eyes on the television set in order for us to maximize our profit. Because they can't put it in those terms. They don't. And so you get one person after the next, one governor, calling for a state of emergency year after year after year after year. We've been battered by 5 or 6 storms at this point, each one just as devastating, if not worse, than the last. The wild part about this is, this stuff is predicted. The United Nations puts out a hair on fire report. If you've looked at some of the stuff they put out before, it's been muted. This is not muted. It is worse than we thought. It is worse than we thought. And it is driven by our actions on this planet. The wild part about it is when media presents this, they tell people, you should recycle and all that stuff. Nonsense. The issue here is not recycling. The overwhelming majority of the problems associated with global warming, meaning climate, is done from industry. Not human beings, just regular human beings. Industry. Yes, people should recycle. It's a good fucking thing to have. But if you're talking about the drivers of this are the people who put money into the political pockets of the Democratic Party, the people who put money into the pockets of the Republican Party, the people who own the media organizations, meaning all of the edifice that is built or that is there that should allow the public some recourse, something in which to do something about this, have been grabbed by the throat. All of which have been grabbed by the throat. So instead of having a full understanding that we are causing our monsters, even from the standpoint of this, we don't get it. Or at the very least, it doesn't go out to the public in this way. It is a bizarre thing. It is a fantastically bizarre thing. As a civilization, we've engaged in a religion of sorts, a capitalistic religion, that says maximize profit and creates this bubble of consciousness around the planet where one person chips off of another to make their own ends. I understand why regular human beings aren't necessarily enthralled by this. And let me show you what I mean. Wesley Walker, one of my subscribers, put this on Facebook, and hopefully he doesn't mind me showing it. He was writing out a thing, essentially shorter points. He was making the point of all the things that are going wrong. But I love this part. Obvious observations. Ocean acidification, sea level rise, global temperature rise, warming oceans, glacial retreat, record flooding, record fires, vanishing Arctic sea ice, searing drought, vast bleaching of the barrier reef, more intense hurricanes, tornadoes, storms. Every reputable educational body, scientific institution on Earth backs up the fact that man-made climate change is real, happening, and is caused by human activity on this planet. The thing is, and by the way, it gets worse. Plastic in our oceans, the foods that we eat, losing a certain degree of nutritional value because the carbon is essentially lessening. It's almost like junk food. We're killing ourselves, and we're doing so others can make profit. Profit is not real. It is an unreal thing. God, I don't know how to get this across. The wild part about it is any conversation about climate change, you need to automatically go into this idea of capitalism. And not just capitalism, culture. But the culture to some degree is driven by the capitalistic process. You can't necessarily separate one from the other. At a certain point where people do stuff over and over and over again, meaning over the course of their life, they get accustomed to the things that they do. Whether those things are good or bad, they get accustomed to those things. Meaning it's their normal way of operating, and they believe that the normal way of operating is normal. It's not. We're killing ourselves. It is a... What does the world look like when needs are no longer the main driver of action? What does the world look like in those situations? I say it in that sense because it is not wrong, crazy. It may be to some degree irrational on a larger contextual level of an individual who needs to make ends to not care about the larger things because they're focused on the things that are directly in front of them. That's not insane. That's survival. Anybody would do that. If you needed to get from point A to point B and you needed to make ends meet, then you need to make ends meet. Somebody's having a conversation to you about the environment, that matters less because I need to make my ends. That's not insane. That's as rational can be. Which means I need to evaluate why is that person stuck in this process of always having to get their needs met like a hamster will. as opposed to, do we have the things necessary in order to make sure everyone have what they need and we can supply the stuff in a sustainable way? We're killing ourselves. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. And we are ferociously fighting to essentially to allow the top 1% to externalize one thing after the next, meaning one, we call them externalities. So it's, yes, this person pulled the stuff out of the ground, burned the stuff into the sky, made a huge amount of profit off of the government giving them billions of dollars, while at the same token, they're creating hurricanes, earthquakes, especially in areas like Ohio and these kind of areas where fracking has taken hold. And they're destroying our world for their profit. Beyond just the oil and gas, you have this issue of animal agriculture. Animal agriculture, if not the leading driver, is one of the leading drivers, like the second leading driver, either one or two, with the standpoint of this climate, the catastrophe. This is a human-made catastrophe. And based on that UN report, we have like 10 years to get our shit in order. That's assuming you're of mind that we can get our shit in order at all. I'm not going to keep this one long because nobody likes the videos on climate. We must change this. Not a law or just this kind of policy, but a revolution in regards to human beings going about their way and going about their affairs. And I gotta be honest, I am not confident that that takes place. I mean, as long as people are going to be struggling just to make ends meet, they're not going to look at the larger issues, which there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. And people, for the most part, go about their way, paying it no mind. Peter version 1. I had 3 notifications for the same video. Now I want to know what I missed. Also, Jamal, are you a vampire? You seem to be up every day. Peter, you didn't miss anything. My live stream, I'm having live stream difficulty in Egypt. And the first 2 videos didn't necessarily work all that well to go up. So this one is doing a little bit better, even though it's not as great as I would want it to be. The signal strength seems strong, but I'm seeing buffering, significant buffering. We cannot deal with the environment until we nationalize fossil fuels. Tabitha Enriquez. Tabitha, it goes beyond that. I mean, honestly, let's be real talk for the moment. None of the bullshit stuff, and I'm not saying what you're saying is bullshit. Yeah, you're right. Either nationalize or take stake in and dramatically cut, like dramatically cut. Profit, the idea, the very notion that all of this is held up because somebody else is making a profit is terrifying. Think about what we're saying here. There's an asteroid that's about to hit the planet. Yeah, but how much is it going to cost to avert it? The unreal thing of cash. Cash isn't real. It's a mental construct. But that unreal thing of cash is becoming a determinative factor in whether or not we can save the world. How bizarre is that? How bizarre is that? As a human species, to hold ourselves up. This is a religious belief. This is a magnificent religious belief. It's no different than Christians. It's no different than these other religious groups. But in this case, it's capitalism. You may not believe in my God, but you're going to pray at my altar. When you buy at Amazon, when you pay for Uber, when you buy this or that because you need access to that particular resource. You may not like my God, but you will bow at my altar. I make these videos because I try to get across to people that this is not the way the world needs to be. For fuck's sake. Right now, The majority of people on this planet go to work and they give much of their worth to somebody else. That's what we do. That's how we go about our affairs. Now, in going about our affairs in this way and giving so much worth to the top 1%, they expropriate the wealth. 95% of the wealth went to the top 1% during the Obama era. 95%. That is a magnificent amount. The rest of the people had to fight over the remaining 5% of scraps. And you wonder why people, well, you know, why you get Trump or Brexit, or why the chaos in Europe. Some of the chaos in Europe has to do with the immigration laws and everything else. But a lot of immigration, at least in the standpoint of the United States, is usually an issue about jobs. Yes, there's some people who are racist, but oftentimes issue of jobs. It makes no sense to me. It's just like kings and queens. Why would you allow a small body of men to make the determinations for everybody else? The people who make our society run, the people who keep the lights on, who puts the cement on the ground, who essentially, yes, writes the parking tickets. Those people are a pain in the ass, but they're working stiffs nonetheless, who essentially make our society work, who pour the coffee, who serves your Starbucks, who does some kind of engineering project in order to build some big fucking thing. There are human beings that do that. And those human beings that do that should be able to keep the wealth from those things. Meaning, if I do a job, this idea that there's a small 1% at the top that expropriates wealth from me, as opposed to using that wealth in the hands of the people who do the work. It seems as logical can be that the people who do the work should get the money from the work that they do. This gets into this idea of worker cooperatives. This idea that you don't need a small body of men to expropriate the wealth and make the determinate decisions for the company. The individuals themselves can make those decisions. Workers themselves can make those decisions. You don't need the top 1%. My point in making this argument from the standpoint of this, in the climate, is that a small body of men who have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo in a way that the status quo is able to do this because they're able to use that great wealth to invest that great wealth into political parties, into people, politicians, to keep the political instrument, this thing to which supposed to represent us, to keep that stifled and to maintain it in the standpoint of a status quo. A status quo, by the way, that is killing us. I make an argument this is an issue of culture, yes, but the political instrument is completely seized up with any idea of having any real change in this issue. This is dramatically worrying. This is dramatically worrying. Why fight for Rome when you can own it? Yes. Michael Parks, yes. 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 That's exactly, yes. Hey, Maris, talk to me about ocean acidification, JT. Well, this is another one of those things that's purely based on the way we've been going about our affairs. Let me say it this way. People have these arguments about capitalism and socialism, and I find these arguments to be somewhat pointless. No, it doesn't change anybody's mind on this. I would make the case here that whether you want to talk about capitalism, socialism, everything else, those things are less relevant than whether or not we are living in a way that's sustainable. Sustainable living. Meaning, whatever argument you make to me, capitalist, socialist, if you're not living within a context that you recognize this world has a certain habitable living space, and that if you are doing things that is destroying the habitable living space of this planet, then you yourself would also be undermined by that. I guess I make the point that if existence to some degree is something that we want to maintain, let's put that as a top priority. And if our existence is being threatened by the behaviors that we are taking place, then I would argue to you that your mode of organization, your mode of thinking, meaning all these people who are talking about capitalism, is wrong. It's fundamentally flawed. Flawed because we're killing ourselves. We're killing ourselves. Merced Cali, perhaps survival is the best we can hope for, and survival of our own sanity and humanity at that. I don't do this because I think it will change anything now. My fear in this, or my hope in this, is that we will dramatically, adversely affect life on this planet. And while life is being adversely affected on this planet, when it becomes flesh to bone, when it's real, when it's not, there's an asteroid that's hitting the planet and we're getting the effects of the asteroid, when we're hit in the face by this asteroid over and over and over again, when people start dying, when our world crashes, all of this crashes, what's after that? Maybe better. That's what I hope for. I could be wrong on that. That's what I hope for. That's grim, but it's true. It's the way I think. Capitalists are making a profit while murdering the planet. Yes. Yes. Shan Riha. How come every time everything the climate scientist says hasn't happened? Or do you remember Gore saying that there'll be no ice in the Arctic by 2016? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You realize they're talking about an Arctic-free summer. Maybe you haven't seen this. Maybe you haven't seen this. Maybe you haven't seen this. Maybe you haven't been paying attention. It is worse than what they thought. It's worse. Betray your soul. The technology to feed, clothe, and educate every single person on this earth exists today. Yes, at this point, it's a choice. At this point, it is a choice. We spend $1 trillion. Do you realize it would take like $150 billion to get rid of poverty? Jeff Bezos, by himself, could eradicate all the poverty on earth.